Hello there. I cannot tell you how many times I've been trying to go live and the internet has not allowed me to. And for the last 2 days, it's been a lot of effort. And you know what? Actually, something just happened. I just was watching something and educating myself as I spend so much time doing, and a light bulb went on, and I felt like it was really important to find a way to make this video happen right now. Lo and behold, I came over and Facebook Live actually worked for the first time here in 2 days. As you can see, the weather has finally changed. It's a beautiful day out here, and really excited to be sharing some of this stuff with you. So, you know, one of the reasons why I do these videos, people ask me all the time, why do you do these videos? And it's really because I've been working so much on myself, and I've seen changes in my reality and my life, and my wife doing the same thing and us doing it together has really helped pick up and improve upon our quality of life in every realm, from our health to our finances to our relationship with each other, to our relationship with other individuals, to our own satisfaction throughout the whole day. And I really feel a need to share this information with people that might not have the access to it, because if I can make my life better, so can you, so can anybody else that's watching this. And I have this firm belief, and you may share it with me if you don't yet. Keep watching, and you probably will, and keep investigating more and more. But we are in a fundamental shift in where our planet is headed, what the future looks like, what things are going to happen. And that shift is in a shift in consciousness and a shift in understanding about who we are, the types of beings that we are not just these physical bodies walking around, going to work, paying our debts, doing the to-do lists, that we are actually significantly more than just these physical bodies, that we are actually an extension of the God. And the more that I learn about this stuff, and the more people I meet, and the more I practice these practical ways of proving it, the more that I find evidence of this. And it's really exciting, because it means that you are the master of your own destiny. It means that I am the master of my own destiny. And that means that we never have to be victims again. We never have to be hurting. And if the collective group of humans on this planet start to wake up to that, things will start to change rapidly. New technologies are going to come out that's going to improve our quality of life, because people are going to be focusing on this type of work. They're going to have a better connection with each other, a better connection to the source that drives us. When you can connect with people, it's really amazing, because when you're with people, you actually pick up on their energy, their vibration, what's going on with them. It's scientifically proven with mirror neurons, is what they call it in science and biology. And that's why you might go into a car dealership and you might walk home or drive home in a car you weren't planning to get, and might actually have buyer's remorse once you leave the presence of that individual. It doesn't mean they were trying to trick you. It just means they were so excited, it got you so excited, and guess what happened? You bought something you weren't necessarily prepared to buy. It happens with women with their makeup. It happens to men with their gym memberships. It happens to all of us, right? But actually what's happening is our brain starts to copy the people that we're around. So the more of these types of tools that we all start to put into our lives, the more things that we learn to improve our relationships with our spouses and our friends, our relationship with money, our relationship with God, the spirituality and the connectedness to that, our own personal health. It's actually only going to serve to drive a better humanity. So that being said, I just felt it was so important to share this with you. That is why I share these different tools that I learn, and I feel like it's so important to do it. So please, subscribe to this, share this with people, comment on this. Also, tell me what you think. Does that resonate with you? There's a bunch of you on here right now. What I said, it's kind of a little bit out there from some of the things I've talked about in the past. Let me know, does that resonate with you, or do I just sound crazy? I don't care either way. You can tell me I sound crazy, because it will actually help me to figure out a better way to explain it in the future. So tell me, please, if you're on here right now, everything I just said, does that resonate with you? And I'm going to start kind of going through some of these Q&As that I promised based on the title of this video. So for those of you that don't know, I was in Spain for the last 2 weeks. I was at a conference in Ibiza. It was an amazing experience. Got to sit with best-selling authors, coaches, billionaires, and pick their brains and actually learn from them what they're doing and why they're so successful. And the theme of this event was actually on relationships. So a lot of the individuals, like Esther Perel, 25 years as a psychologist, and all she's done her whole entire life for 25 years is study how relationships work, how they don't work, what makes people happy, what makes them not happy. And in the scope of relationships really is her focus on how to have a successful relationship. And the transition, because relationships have changed quite a bit in the last century, right? And we modeled our parents. That's how we figured out how to be in a relationship. We watched TV, we modeled our parents, and maybe we were lucky and had somebody in our life that actually just seemed to have it all figured out, and that actually helped us with it. But most of us haven't. Maybe we read a book or something like that. But these individuals, Esther, 25 years of her life. Another gentleman, Dan Savage, who was part of the panel that I'm going to go through some of these questions with. This guy is hysterical. If you've never heard of him, definitely Google him. He basically started writing a Q&A column, like Ask Abby, or any of those editorial columns where you can actually write in and he'll answer your questions, and it's all about sex and love. Now the twist is he actually started off 25 years ago, and he didn't tell anybody this, but he's actually a gay man. So he was answering questions for mostly straight couples as a gay man, and just giving them candid, like crass remarks, the same way that back in those times the straight people would handle the gay people. So what was surprising, he thought he was going to do it for 6 months. It was going to be a big joke, and then, you know what, people weren't going to like it. Well, the mail started flooding in. He's made a career out of it. I mean, he is made a huge career out of it, and he's helped people in so many ways. And it was just really interesting hearing him talk about different ways of managing relationships and getting things along, and something from the gay community, which actually treats relationships significantly different than the straight community. And having that contrast, believe it or not, they've got some really, really good ideas. And then the other person on the panel was Marissa Peer. And she is a world-renowned hypnotherapist and coach. She coaches and hypnotizes the royal family in the UK, and celebrities like Ozzy Osbourne actually got him to stop drinking. It was her hypnotherapy that actually got Ozzy Osbourne to finally stop drinking once he finally stopped drinking. So she's very, very talented. So here's some of the questions that got asked by the panel, and feel free to throw any questions that you guys have, because there was definitely more, but these were some of the key ones that I picked up on and wrote down, and kind of just broke down the answers that they had there. So one of the questions was, how do you decide between when you're in a relationship, if two people don't want to do the same thing, how do they decide what you're gonna do, right? And this is one of the things that we plague ourselves with. And Marissa had a very quick answer, and she very logical in her thinking, said, you know what, actually, the way we do it in our relationship is, and all these people are married in long-term relationships, like doing really well with them, so you can take their advice, was, in our relationship, what we do is we kind of look and see whose need is more important, and the other person makes a sacrifice, which I thought was a really, really sound answer, right? And that's a very practical kind of way of doing it. Well, it was funny because the other two panelists actually disagreed with her significantly. They said, actually, when you do something for somebody else, you should be doing it with no expectation for knowledge or praise. Like, you should just actually do it because that's what you want to do for somebody else. So in a way, you could compromise because it actually feels good to do something for somebody else instead of standing your ground and kind of getting in your way. And then another thing that got brought up was to make sure actually you can even top that. And this was brilliant, and this got brought up a couple times, and my wife and I actually put some of this into practice in our own relationship. But rather than trying to compromise, you sit down and say, you want to do X, I take it, instead of doing X and Y. I don't know if you guys got interrupted there, I had a call coming here, but rather than saying either we can do X or Y, how do we make a Z? How do we make something even better where neither one of us need to compromise? And if you truly sit down together in a relationship, you can take whatever the X and the Y were and create a Z. And it is so powerful. So next time you guys can't decide on what place to go out for dinner, rather than putting your feet into the ground, you can actually sit there and work together and find a better solution. Or it could be a bigger problem that you're trying to solve than dinner, but that's like an easy place to start. Gabby, my wife, and I, we've started doing this already, and the results have been so profound. And I would go into details, but I want to give you a couple questions, and this video is going to be pretty long because there's a bunch of questions on it, so I'd rather just give you the meat of it, and you work it for yourself, and I'll do individual videos on any one of them if you guys like this stuff. So please, comment if this is resonating with you, if you want a separate video on any specific thing. But at the end of the day, when you are with your spouse, rather than having to choose to do it their way or your way, you can find an our way. You can always, always, always find an our way. So try to work on that instead of saying, I'm going to make a sacrifice for you. Because if you make sacrifices, it becomes this tit for tat thing. Or if they make sacrifices, it's tit for tat. And there's like there's indebtedness, and it can cause so many arguments down the road. I probably don't have to explain that to you. I can tell you from firsthand experience plenty of times where I got my way, and then later it came back up, and I was like, man, this sucks. And I'm sure, I know that I've done it on the other side where I've sacrificed myself, and then I was pissed off later, and it caused a lot of friction, unnecessary friction in our relationship. Whereas if we were true partners and we worked together, guess what would happen? We both would have a better result, getting more of what we wanted. So yeah, and Tammy, I'm glad that you really have this concern and this issue, but the thing is, we are going to want some different things, and we want to be able to speak up and be able to speak our truth on what we want, and we want to be able to do it and know that it's going to be actually expanding us. So when you have differences in what you want, it's actually a good thing, because then the masculine energy and the feminine energy, you've been watching some Gabby stuff, so dynamically different. And the more that the feminine pushes to expand and wants more, it actually forces the man to create stronger boundaries, but expand their boundaries and actually create more of room for what's possible. So I'm going to do another video on this, but it's actually a good thing to have a little bit of this friction, because you actually will find things better than the original idea. So that's the most amazing thing that I found coming from this. Another big thing that was brought up a couple times was to think of, when you're in a relationship, like you're acting, like as if you were acting in a movie. And which character do you want to be when you're watching a movie? Like if you watch a movie and there's that person is the hero that makes their person fall completely in love with them, or there's that person that actually is trying to make little problems in the relationship, or there's that person that's just sitting by the sideline that doesn't engage in the relationship. And all these are parts and roles, and watching movies is a great example of the psychological thriller that goes on in our mind. And if you take your relationship, and rather than thinking about necessarily what you want, you think about what role you would play. If this was a movie and this was going to be Hollywood, are you going to be the person that's breaking people up? Are you going to be the person that's elevating them? Are you going to be the person that is demanding? Are you going to be the person that's giving? And if you remember this and go back to this, what's important to you, I think everybody that watches my stuff, honestly, I think you're all going to want to be the hero. You're going to want to be the hopeless romantic. You're going to be the one that wants to give. And tell me if I'm wrong here, or tell me if I'm right too. Please tell me, what your thoughts are. But I think you're going to want to be that hero. And by looking at it as if you were in a movie doing this, you start to act in a way that is as if other people are watching you, and you start to act in more of your higher self, and you start to hold yourself in more accountability. So that's another trick. I've been doing it all the time. Like, it's gotten me to just stop a couple times this last, even today, a few times. I just stopped what I was doing in work, and I just went and grabbed my wife's hand, and I just interrupted her, and I danced her around the dining room for 30 seconds. And you know what? It brought so much excitement and romance back into our relationship. It was just like that easy, 20, 30 seconds. And then I go back to what I'm doing. She goes back to what she's doing. And you know what? I get to be her hero, which actually, men, raises your testosterone when you get to be the hero. That's why we want to solve things so much. And it raises her estrogen because she gets to be feeling secure and loved. And that is a great thing for a woman to have, is more estrogen, as men have more testosterone. So that's an amazing trick that I've been using. And like, what can I just do right now here for 10 seconds and just make her feel like super loved and important? And it's really shifted our relationship. And it was good before, but now it's just like off the charts. And it takes so little effort, and it's actually fun for me to do. So I strongly encourage you to think about what you want to be, what actor, actress you would play, what role you'd play in a movie if your life was a movie. Because you know what? One day, somebody might make a movie about your life. And how do you want to be reflected in that movie? So that was one big takeaway, and that was from Esther Perel. Another thing that was really interesting Esther came up with, she said, you know, relationships only go to a certain level until you are completely honest with yourself, with what was the secret bargain that you made up with yourself. That was that secret bargain. You said that I will be in this relationship if I can still have X, if it can be this way. What is that actual secret bargain that you made? And I want to share mine with you, but I want to talk to my wife about it first, because I don't know if she's going to want it to be public. So one of these times I may actually just break it out, because it's actually would make me so incredibly vulnerable and would feel really good. But it does include her, so I don't want to put her stuff out there without talking to her first about it. But there will be a time. There will be a time, and maybe we're going to do a video together, so maybe you guys can ask what our secret bargains were. I don't even know what hers is. I know she knows what mine is, because I was pretty transparent about it up front. But, you know, it's, I don't know if I know what hers is. Yeah, so secret bargain. So in some way, Tammy, and, you know, you and Ross have an awesome relationship. I see you guys all the time. But there was something you had to either give up or promise yourself that this would change or this wouldn't change, and having a certain boundary that you put on. Or maybe not. But Esther, her theory is, you know, in any relationship, and maybe that's part of the reason why you don't have the friction. You know, she's been a psychologist for 25 years or something like that, studying this stuff, and typically that's what comes down to the most amount of stress in the relationship, is if there was a secret bargain. So Tammy, definitely try to think and see if there was one, and see if there is anything, because if you can figure out what it is and you can communicate that to Ross or anybody, to your spouse, it's gonna immediately uplift things and improve things in your relationship, because there's always an expectations that we have that we don't necessarily communicate. So one real practical question that was asked, I'm gonna just keep moving on here. So and thank you for liking my hair. It's this beautiful wind is just pulling it out of the bun. It's just been one of those days. I just got done gardening. So one of the amazing questions that got brought up is, what do you do if your partner doesn't stop texting? And it was so funny to see the different reactions between every one of the panelists. Dan Savage, who I mentioned earlier, his partner is always on the phone, and it creates an enormous amount of friction. They'll be out at dinner, and his partner will be sitting there texting or on Facebook instead of enjoying dinner with him. And this happens with so many relationships nowadays. Ross, I know Ross does not text very much, so you guys have this one all right. But you know, at the end of the day, I see this happen everywhere I go. I know I'm even guilty of it sometimes. I'll set a time limit, and that's kind of like been my thing. Well, Dan got like erupted with this question because it's a real sticking point in his relationship. So he spent quite a bit of time talking about how difficult this was in his relationship, and basically he just learned to accept it and realize that arguing about it requires more energy than just letting go of it. And that's one way of doing it. But Esther Perel, if you don't know who she is, definitely watch one of her videos so you can get an idea. She speaks 9 different languages. She's in her 60s probably. She is a firecracker. And she would just, without even a moment of hesitation, was just like, I text them. If somebody is on their phone and they won't sit there and enjoy their time with me, I will pick up my phone and I will text them and say, there's somebody here waiting to hang out with you. And the room erupted with laughter. And she says it works every time like a charm. So try it out. Let me know how it works for you. I haven't had to do this, but I really wanted to share it because I know that this is this is definitely a problem in a lot of relationships. So Ben, what do you got here? Ben, I don't know what you mean with the 15 plus phone calls. If you want to elaborate, I will definitely jump in on that. I got my notes here, so I'm just I'm just kind of reviewing them to make sure I remember the question and so forth. So, you know, Dan's response was have them put the phone down or just let them be how they are, and if you don't want to. That's really it. Esther, on the other hand, said just text them, and it was amazing. Another question that got brought up was how all 3 of these individuals have been in relationships for 20 plus years, and they want to know how do you keep things, you know, exciting and new. And Marissa said, you know, keeping herself girlish around her husband, John, and just making sure that when she's with him, she gets really deeply into her feminine and acts like she's, you know, a high school girl or, you know, a young college girl, because it keeps him excited about who she is. And it's funny, Gabby does this to me a lot now that I'm thinking about it. She, like, sometimes I feel like I am with, like, 15-year-old Gabby. Sometimes I feel like I'm with 21-year-old Gabby. Sometimes I feel like I'm with, well, she's now 30. Don't tell anybody I told you. 30-year-old Gabby, actually more and more lately. But in our intimate times, it becomes that inquisitive, exciting, like, fun and playful Gabby versus that more serious 30-year-old Gabby that she's now started to become. So, oh, Ben, your wife calls you every 30 minutes. Oh, yes, let me come back to that. I want to bring a couple things, and that is not uncommon, by the way. That is not at all uncommon. And Roll, yeah, I know you can't keep a secret. I don't know why I say anything if you're watching. So one of the things that I learned, I want to give you one of the pieces, and you know what, this actually might help you as well, Ben, with your wife calling a lot. So when you actually can get into your heart and communicate from your heart rather than from your mind, us men tend to be very logical beings and very rational. But if we actually start talking about how we feel and just use that terminology, like, when you do X, it makes me feel Y. Or right now I am feeling like this. Or it would feel really good to me if you could X, Y, Z. Maybe if you feel really good to me, it's annoying you that she's calling you every 30 minutes, 15 times a day, and you want to slow it down, say, you know, something to the effect of, it would feel really good to me if we could limit the phone calls to X number of times a day. So this way, when you call, I actually have news to update you on, and you have something to update me on. I love hearing you breathe, and I love being around you, and you are so much fun, but it would feel really nice if we had some new news, and if time doesn't pass, then I don't have any new news for you. So you could try an approach like that. You know, by getting into your heart and talking in these feeling statements, which you don't want to do at work, not in the masculine world we live in. 99% of the jobs out there That's not how you want to talk to people. You tell them how you feel, and they're like, shut up, go away, I don't care. But with your intimate relationships, if you can speak in the female language, which is more in feelings, then you can make a lot of progress. And this is coming from a man. I do this all the time with Gabby, and it works like clockwork every single time. So if you can actually do that, you can actually encourage the woman to get out of her head where she's got her concerns and her worries and all those things going on, which is going to perpetuate that need to talk to you all the time, to make sure that you're still there, because she's worried that you're not there in some way, right? And this is belief hacking for her. Like if she wants to do work on herself, then she should definitely look at some methodologies of belief hacking. But you can't change anybody, right? You can only change yourself. So that's why I suggest you change your terminology for her. If you do that, it should open up some space for her. If you start talking in feelings, she'll start talking in feelings. Then you guys now have these feeling conversations. It should get her out of her head and out of those worries and those concerns, like, what are you doing? What are you not doing? Instead, she's going to start feeling with her heart like that you actually really care about her, because you're being vulnerable and you're opening up to her. So those feeling statements don't have to always come with a change. And in fact, they shouldn't always come with a change. You should talk about just how you're feeling and just leave it open, because what you're actually doing is you're actually going into the feminine, and that's like a feminine energy where they just, if you didn't see the video, actually, Ben, I posted a video about, it's not about the nail. YouTube it. It's amazing, and it just completely explains how men and women are different. Like, men want to solve the problem. Women, they want to discuss it. They want to be in it. They want to live it. And it drives us nuts, because we know the problem, the solution. We know what the problem is. We know what the solution is a lot of times. And actually, when we solve a problem, our testosterone spikes up. So it's actually good for us biologically. Women, though, they want you to hear them. They just want you to listen to them. So if you just offer a solution, they feel like you're not listening. They feel like you haven't heard what they're saying. So it's really important that you handle this delicately. When you start talking into these feeling statements, you're actually going into the feminine modality, so this way they actually can hear you. And when you can do that, now what it actually is going to do is going to create a polarity, because they can sit there and stay in their feeling statement, but that doesn't usually happen. Usually you get into that feminine modality, they start looking for the solutions, and they might even offer up. If you say something like, it would feel nice if we talked at these times a day, so this way I can concentrate on my studies or my work or whatever it is, because I really get in the flow. And then when you call me, then it takes me a little bit out of my flow, and then I feel like I can't give to you as much at the end of the day. So tell me, Ben, if that sounds like something that you think you could try or you think would work. That would definitely be my suggestion on that. Again, I'm not a marriage counselor. I can only tell you what works for me. At the end of the day, you can only change what you do. And when you change how you handle a situation, it's going to change how the other person handles the situation. So usually when somebody's calling you that often, you can actually think the reason why they're calling that often. I mean, either they're worried, like you fell down the stairs and something's, which is, you're an adult, like I don't know what that feeling comes from for her. So you could potentially pull that kind of stuff out. It could be, anything in belief hacking with her on this stuff, and trying to figure out the root cause, why she feels like she should call you so much, may be the answer, if she's open to it. If she's not open to it, don't press, because it's just going to trigger her and it'll be an argument, and nobody wants to argue. Like, that's not, I don't think you do. So one other concept I really wanted to share with you was so interesting, because with this panelist, I mean, they talked about everything. They talked about marriage, but they also talked about the evolution of marriage and why there is so much divorce. And we don't have time to go through all this today, but I'm going to bring this stuff up with Gabby. But one of the things I definitely wanted to leave you thinking about was, somebody raised the question of polyamory, or monogamish, they call it, or not being in exclusive relationships, right? And what Dan said was, marriage is really interesting, because it's only successful when somebody dies before it ends. So you've got to be in it till you die. And if you think about it, like, there's nothing else we have that we measure success by, like, you do it until you die, right? So you don't go to a restaurant and eat, and like the only way that it was a good meal is if somebody dies, or take a flight somewhere and the only way it's a good flight, somebody dies. Like, it's always the opposite of this. So since it's always the opposite of this, and now in marriage, this day and age, there's been so much divorce, right? And sometimes the relationship's only served its purpose. So if any of you that are watching are divorced and have any guilt around that, like your marriage was a failure, the reality is that marriage is only a failure if you decide that it's a failure, if you decide you learn nothing from it. So if you can maybe take a different approach with it and give yourself some grace, especially those of you that, because I know a lot of people that are divorced this day and age, I mean, some of them several times, and it's, over 50%. Just look at your relationships and realize that they are part of your path, and they're taking you where you need to go, wherever that is, and you should be learning constantly from that. You shouldn't stay in a marriage just because it is that you're married. You should stay in a marriage because you fulfill each other, because you still are working on that partnership, and you continue to grow as a result of being together. And the moment that stops, and the moment you can't figure out a way to become more because you're with the person you're with, then you might want to reinvestigate whether or not you want to be married to that person. If they don't light you up and you guys make every effort to do it, then maybe you don't want to be in that relationship. And that's any relationship, even if you're not married. But it just was a different way of looking at it. And I thought it resonated with me. And I say this with Gabby all the time. Like, I love you. I don't know what's going to happen in 20 years from now or 10 years from now. If we get to a point where we are not happy together and we're not growing and we're just making each other miserable, like, we're not going to keep doing this. Like, we'll always try to make sure that it's that way. But if we can't grow anymore with each other, which I'm not worried that's going to happen, but if that was the case, then we need to part ways, and we need to do so lovingly and give to each other that space. And it's a really hard conversation to have, because I mean, we're basically newlyweds, like coming up on 3 years here, and to converse about if we were going to get divorced, why we would get divorced, it seems like completely counterintuitive. But nothing should be off the table in terms of the conversations in your relationships. If you're married to somebody and you're committed to making the most of it, you should be able to talk about every single thing. And sometimes we don't do that, and it really prevents us from reaching our potential. Because when you're acting alone as an individual, you can accomplish a lot. And this was something that was so true for me. I built a business. I had over 150 employees. I built millionaires. I made millions. I had all kinds of awesome stuff, and it was great. But I was alone. And when I was alone, after I sold my business, and I had nobody to share that with, I went on like this most ridiculous, destructive journey. I was spending money on things that are ridiculous to spend money on, and spending my time in my life, like going from nightclub to party girl to go-go dancer to whoever. I dated some people, and I dated them for a long time because they were around, and not because they were fulfilling me in any way, but, well, sexually, for sure. I was getting that. But I ended up just spending a lot of money and being miserable and being around alcoholics and drug addicts and drama addicts. And, it made me feel, at a certain point, so incredibly depressed, to the point where I just felt like I would never be in a relationship, and I would never be able to have that. And it was so incredibly painful during those times, like just realizing, like, man, there's just nobody out there. I don't even know how to reach them. And I know that this is going to resonate with some of you that watch this, because I think pretty much all of us have been in crappy relationships. If you've been in a crappy relationship, like, let me know. And you know what I'm talking about, where like you feel like you've got so much of your life figured out, and you're independent in so many ways, and you've got things going on, and it might be like, okay, I race cars and I love doing this, and I'm really good at it, and I'm winning all the time, and I have a good job, and I have financial security, and all those great things, and then you try to do the relationship thing, and the relationship thing just bombs, and you just feel like crap constantly because you're in this relationship that's actually not serving you. Well, one of the things that I learned from that, and I hope that you take it with you, was by changing the way I was behaving. It was the only way to actually move forward, to being able to let go of those things that were not serving me. It was the only way that I could actually move forward. And now, as a result of doing that, I meet this amazing woman, but I had to let go of so much other stuff. And a lot of it was just my shit. It was just straight up my shit that I carried in, beliefs about how relationships were by watching my parents. I had my relationships with my parents when I was growing up. And not that they were bad people. My parents were freaking amazing. But some of their modeling, they aren't experts at it. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing these videos, because we only have those models that we grew up around. And I got blessed to be around so many insightful, amazing people this last few weeks, and it's really transformed my relationship. So pop in with any questions. I'm just going to review real quick to see if there's any anything here that I left out that I think is really, really important. I mean, I got like a whole book of notes, and yeah, just pop in with any questions you have while I look here. You know, again, recapping, one of the things, if you want a better experience, play a better part. Play a better part. Be a better person. Just do more. Oh, also, Dan brought up something about being alone. A lot of people are scared of being alone. Well, his response to that was, I hate to break it to you, you are alone. We are all fucking alone. We're absolutely alone. We can be with somebody, but we're still alone. So don't feel like your partner has to complete you, because you are complete. You are completely complete and perfect in exactly who and how you are. That doesn't mean you can't improve, because you're perfect in this moment for what you are, who you are. You can make the changes that call to you, that feel to you. Don't expect your partner to complete you, because you are complete. Your partner, though, triggering you when they do something that upsets you, that expands you. When they compliment you, that expands you, if you would allow it to. So your partner should actually be there to expand you, not to complete you. So maybe look at it from that angle and start noticing how your partner actually does that versus feeling like a need to complete them. And maybe that doesn't resonate with any of you watching this, but I thought it was really interesting because we hear this so much, like, oh, you complete me. Like, nobody complete. You're completely whole on your own. And I thought it was a really important thing for people to realize and know. So also take the fact that you can't, right with that information, take the fact that maybe you can't fulfill every single one of your partner needs. That's going to be a reality, right? We don't fulfill every single one of the needs of our partners. But they stay with us anyway. And the fact that we can't even fulfill every one of their needs and they stay with us anyway should be taken as a compliment. And we should feel good about that. Versus, I know for myself, before I heard that, like feeling like I couldn't complete or I completely do everything for Gabby that she wanted me to do, it made me feel weak. It made me feel like less of a man. So once I heard it, looked at it that way, like, oh yeah, well, you know what? Even though I'm not perfect, she's staying with me anyway. Well, guess what? That just goes right down to the fact that she really fucking cares about me. She really loves me, and it's actually a big compliment that even though I'm not perfect, she stays with me anyway. So I thought that was really, really, really awesome. So I think I'm going to leave it here. Yeah, thank you, Tammy, for chiming in again here. And everybody, thanks for watching. Please share this and tag anybody you want to, and just spread the word. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I pour my heart and soul into making these videos and trying to share this knowledge. As I was saying in the beginning of this conversation, I believe that we're going to see a huge transformation in human consciousness on this planet over the next 10 years. and I'm really excited to be part of it. And each one of you knowing this information, please go try it. Tell me if it does work or if it doesn't work with you. And let's learn from each other. We are all in this together. We have access to every single thing we possibly could want. You know, this day and age, like you have everything at your fingertips, like 90% of the planet does. And especially if you're watching this right now, you really are leading the charge on this. Like it or not, you are the 1%. It's up to us to wake the fuck up, and become like actively pursuing what we want to do in our lives. You know, there's a saying that I heard that there's 3 different types of people. And there's the people that do things, there's people that watch people do things, and then there's the people that wonder what the fuck happened. And I kind of believe that we actually could be any one of those 3 at any given time. But being that person that says, what the fuck happened? Let's not be that person anymore. Let's be attentive. Let's be present. Let's pay attention to what's going on. And not just in our daily lives, certainly in our daily lives, but also in this entire world. And let's make sure that we are always watching or we're creating. And if you want any more proof that you are God, just go create something. Because that's what God is defined as, the creator, right? So you can go create so many things, or you could witness people creating things. And that is the beauty of this life that we get to have. We get to go for that ride. I had an experience that I'm going to share with you guys at some point, actually twice. I had experience when I was on this trip, and I got directly tapped in, and much of it was very scary. And I came back, and when I came back with a lot of information. So can't wait to share it with you. I'm just trying to figure out how to put it into words. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Please, please, please share this and go do something, or help somebody do something, or watch somebody do something and cheer them on. Come out with some positivity and love life. All right, I'm going to get back to, I think I'm going to ride my dirt bike tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in. Share this. Love you. Peace.